I'm Laura Bonnell, and this is the Living with Cystic Fibrosis podcast coming to you from Detroit. Please subscribe and even rate and comment on our podcasts when it moves you. I learn something new with every podcast, and I'm always inspired by the people that are showcased here. We don't give medical advice. You need to connect with your doctor for that. I hope that this Living with Cystic Fibrosis podcast educates you and sparks some volunteering or advocacy. The CF community needs people like you. Thanks to our sponsors, Viatris, Genentech, and Vertex for their support. A lot of people will periodically ask me to help them start their own foundation, and while I am always willing to help, a lot of it is that you just have to do it to figure out on your own what needs to be done. A lot of getting your foundation up and running is making mistakes, pivoting, learning, and growing. And joining us for this podcast is Beth Vanstone of Canada. She's a CF mom to Maddie, and she's joining me on this podcast so that we can talk about the foundation coming about in 2010 and how it's going. And thanks, Beth, for doing this with me, because I think it's easier to answer your questions than if I just, talk about it on my own. So thank you.
Oh, you're welcome. I'm really excited to talk to you about this, Laura. And after being in Florida, I think we did start talking about this because I was very interested to know why you started this foundation. It's a big thing to go forth and do. So why did you start your foundation?
It was something I thought about, 28 years ago when Molly was born, my oldest. And I knew then that there was not a foundation that was helping parents with either mentoring or financial assistance. The Cystic Fibrosis Foundation was great, but they raise funds for research. And 28 years ago, there wasn't a lot that they were doing for parents. And of course, they're better at it now. But back then, I knew that I had to do this because I felt the loss myself of being able to connect with other parents and how do you find people and what nonprofits are out there. So that was the first thought I had. And then, of course, I couldn't get it done. When you're raising kids and life is so crazy and working and all of that, it wasn't a possibility until 2010.
That's incredible. So from firsthand experience, you could see that the void in the services and the needs of people like you and me that were trying to raise kids with CF and learn about this disease and look for supports and, financial as well. As you know, it's really expensive to have a child or somebody in your family with CF or any other rare disease. So what was the first thing you had to do to get this off the ground?
Well, thinking about it and being excited about it was one thing. And then I did think, oh my gosh, I don't know what I'm doing. So the first thing I did was reach out to an attorney who was a friend of ours at the time. And he said, we got to start with the bylaws and write your mission statement up and your purpose. That was the first thing that I did. And it was really exciting to think about what the mission statement was and the purpose of the foundation. And, it's basically to help families navigate a life through CF and to help educate and advocate and give funds to families in need. But yeah, when I first started, I had no idea what I was doing. And, I did ask other people, but it's really about doing it yourself. I think about how much I know now, 13 years later, and where it's come. It's unbelievable to me, really, that we are where we are. So,
what's exciting to me, Laura, is looking back at, listening to you talk about this vision that you had and your mission statement. And as you're telling me about your mission, I'm going tick, tick, tick. You're fulfilling your mission statement. And I think that's miraculous and really quite an accomplishment, because with all the things that you have to juggle in your personal life, to be able to start this foundation and on top of that, have a mission of helping others and come through with all of those goals. Like, kudos to you. Like, it's amazing. I love what the Bonnell Foundation does and stands for. You're doing some amazing work. So,
Well, thank you. And I know you can relate because of all the advocacy you've done and still do. It's because you need to do something. You can't just not do anything. And, when I was a radio and TV reporter for 25 years before this, I always thought, this is my passion. I am totally now and then and always a reporter in my head. I'm always asking questions, but I knew that it wasn't my purpose. I loved what I was doing, but until CF came into my life, when Molly was diagnosed, as crazy as it was, I thought, this is why I was born. Like instantly, aside from the trauma of that diagnosis, I was like, well, that makes sense. It all makes sense now. And I finally thought, okay, I know why I'm here now. I know why I was in radio, to have a voice, to give a voice to this disease. So I felt calm when I realized that. I felt like, okay, so we're going to make life work with this diagnosis. And I have a platform, not as big as Taylor Swift, but I do have a platform. So that was a good feeling when I thought, oh my gosh, this is my purpose.
That's amazing, because I felt similar with kind of finding my purpose after Maddie's diagnosis as well. And I think that it's weird when I hear you say that, because I thought I was the only one that really felt that. Like all of a sudden, some of the challenges I'd faced, growing up and coming through life, and, they say what doesn't break you makes you stronger. And I kind of felt like, oh, this is why, because now I'm here and I have a big challenge in front of me, not only raising my daughter, but advocacy takes a lot as well. And I thought, I can do this. And this was all preparation for this point, right? And to be able to do that. So it's interesting hearing you say, my life brought me to this point, and this is what I was meant to do. And it's like you said, it's the trauma of having a child diagnosed in that, but we were put together for these reasons. Like I said to Jessie one day, like,
your other daughter, Jessie.
Yeah, my other daughter. Sorry, yeah. You were meant to be her sister. Like, our family was meant to come together and go through this journey together, and we all have our role to play. And so I think, yeah, hearing you say that, it's like, absolutely.
And Jessie does not have CF, just for anyone who doesn't know. She does not.
No, I just have the one Madison with CF. Jessie was born fine. We don't know if she's a carrier or not. She has not yet been tested, but she plans to be tested soon. So what were some of the first challenges you had trying to get the foundation off the ground? Do you remember?
Yes, I do. And it's actually on videotape with the city of Royal Oak. So it's really important. I think it was you, Beth, that pointed out, oh my gosh, you got to tell people it's not so easy. And every day I'm not just planning an event or working on the scholarship program. There is so much involved. So to get it off the ground, before the federal government gives you your tax exempt number and does all of that, your city has to approve your foundation, at least in Michigan, So I go before the city commissioners and I tell them my mission statement. I tell them I'm helping CF families. And they ask me, well, why am I not giving money locally in my city of Royal Oak? And I said, well, if there's someone in Royal Oak who has cystic fibrosis and needs money, we will give it to them. But at that point, I mean, this is the beginning. No one had asked us for funds yet. And they and again, it's on video, just to back me up as far as what I'm saying. I can't make this up. So the city said they wanted me to donate money to local high schools, or they were not going to see me as a foundation. And if I didn't get my local city I couldn't go any higher. I couldn't get the state and I couldn't get the feds approval. I had to turned to Commissioner Dave Woodward. He's an Oakland County Commissioner. That's the county I live in. And talked to him, and it was just unbelievable. So what I ended up having to do was to give money to 2 football teams, one at a private school, one at a public school.
That's crazy.
That had nothing to do with CF.
With CF, that is just crazy.
And it was against my bylaws and against my mission statement. And I told them that it was the only way that they would approve our status. So it all worked out. Those players came to an event and, they thanked us for it and everything. But it was one of the craziest things as far as starting up the foundation. And then Commissioner Woodward helped facilitate it and get it through, or at least just give me the right information I needed to keep going. And after that, we got our papers that said we were a 501c3, and we've been working ever since to build on this foundation.
That's a crazy story.
It was crazy, even when I talk about it.
It's like almost like they understand.
They understood, but they kept saying, but we don't care. You still have to donate.
Yeah, we just want some of your money. Give me some money. Give us some money and we'll give you what you need. That's crazy. Right. But thankfully it all worked out.
It did all work out, and different people are on the council now, and I'm on the Royal Oak Art Commission. So I'm part of, working with my city. So, but it's funny. There's just some quirks in the process, and there were and are many quirks along the way.
Oh, that's crazy. Did you need a lot of money to start? How much money did you have to start off with? And how did you get that?
We didn't need a lot of money to start, really. At first, our attorney donated his time until he suddenly wanted to be paid and was demanding payment. So that was another weird thing. So we just paid him and then got a different attorney because,
Yeah.
So that was interesting. But yeah, we just started, with the official dollar because I wanted to, always see that. And then, we had $100 and then $1,000, and then it just kept going from there as we raised awareness about what we were doing. It was exciting.
I bet. I just look at you and hear your story thus far, and I have been brave enough. I've run a few charity events for CF Canada to raise money for CF Canada. And just the work involved in events, like just in planning and pulling off events, is amazing. It's a lot of work and a lot of planning. So to think that you do this foundation with all the legalities involved and, raising the money and all these things, and then spreading the money and doing events, hats off to you, because I don't know how you do it. It's amazing. So were you getting paid when you started this? Like, I imagine you were spending a lot of time and your days were full, I would imagine.
Right. No, volunteering. I mean, it was my foundation. I was volunteering. I was working full time at the radio station. I was on morning drives. So I was working 4 a.m. to 1, and then I would come home and work on my foundation as long as I could, and then start over again the next day. But no, I don't know, probably for the first 9 years, I thought, oh, wow, wouldn't that be something? I actually never believed I would get paid for doing this job. I just thought, I'm just going to be volunteer forever and just help other people. So to get where we are now, it's really amazing because, like you said, there are so many different things in addition to just working on events and coming up with new ideas. You have to deal with the Department of Licensing and Regulatory Affairs. And if you're having an event outside of a venue, then you have to get a liquor license. And there's just a bunch of things. And, we have a CPA, we have a bookkeeper, we have a treasurer. I mean, everything has to be down to the penny. We need to know exactly where it's going. All those things are real important. But, you start out small and you grow to that point.
So do you have a board of directors as well? And how does that work?
Yeah, the board of directors you had to have right away when you do the
Okay.
bylaws. You couldn't start without having a board of directors. And most of the people that I started with are still on the board of directors. Not everyone, because in the beginning, Yvonne Moulton and David Moulton, well, Yvonne was doing our books, and you can imagine starting out, it was so overwhelming. I think she did it for 3 years, but she was the foundation, the core, our start, and she still supports us to this day. But it was so time consuming. And then we realized we needed more than one person because it was such a huge job and everyone's volunteering. So that was part of our learning process. Like, oh my gosh, this is very overwhelming for one person.
Yeah.
So a lot of that, like I said, was learning how to grow. You just don't know.
Yeah. So I look at all that you do for the community over and above like your advocacy, because you're a very busy and involved advocate for CF patients. And I talk to you on your off to meet with another senator and go to DC and all these places, and you're constantly raising your voice for patients, rare disease patients as well as CF patients. So in doing that and doing everything else that you do, but you give back. Your foundation gives a lot back to the community. So whether it be the podcasts, I know are an expense, the money that you give to individuals who are in need, you have a scholarship program that you're giving back to. You have to raise a lot of money to be able to give that back to the community. So other than your events, how do you get all these funds to be able to support the patients in the community?
There are a lot of different ways. And I have to say, one of the biggest things I don't want to forget to point out is I did not do this alone. If it wasn't for so many people along the way that helped me or gave me suggestions or said, oh, I'll connect you with somebody, I could not have done it with every single person that helped and is continuing to help me with ideas and thoughts along the way. I think there are a lot of different ways to raise funds. We do it and did it with the help of pharma. We also do it with people attending events who generously donate. We have little Valentine's Day fundraisers, which has become really successful. People really like that. And we do a lot of different fundraisers. We have a gala now that's September 9th, and that is in September every year. We've done golf outings and education day and celebrity softball games and the Portraits of Cystic Fibrosis calendars. And now we have beautiful merchandise that's in gold and silver lungs.
It is beautiful. Yeah.
It is. And that's something new that no one else that I know of had. It's beautifully designed and it's unique and it's actual jewelry. And I know that a lot of people wanted that because they were sick of rubber bracelets.
Yeah.
So when we get input like that, we're like, okay, we need to do some jewelry because that's what people are asking about. So we're always open to ideas. And I think that's really important in the growth of a foundation as well.
Yeah, that's amazing. So unlike Canada, we don't have a lot of foundations that actually just give back to the community. Like we have CF Canada, which is like the CF Foundation that does, a lot of money for research and some money for advocacy, et cetera. But they don't directly support the patients. I don't think there's a scholarship program or anything like that. So is there competition between your foundation and other CF foundations? Because I know that there are more of them in the US than in Canada for sure.
We have a wonderful network of local nonprofit CF foundations, and there is no competition. We all love each other. We work together. We say, hey, this foundation can help you, or maybe check out this foundation. We're all good friends. We all respect what the other foundations do. And I think one of the biggest things that, we've all been talking about amongst ourselves is, and we really need to get the word out there, is it's really important, like when you're supporting a small business, because you hear about small business Saturdays, we really need like a nonprofit Saturday, or for the smaller foundations. All of us from California to New York to Florida, Detroit, Montana, where all of our foundations are all over the place. We need to remind people to support your local nonprofits. It's hard when we help a family and you're so happy to do it, but then you see on social media that they're fundraising for the Cystic Fibrosis Foundation or someone who has a lot of money. And it's not to take anything away from the big foundation.
No, absolutely.
They have a purpose. We need them. We love them as well. But it's just important for people to remember that the local foundations are helping with financial assistance for families or workout programs for people with CF or mental health programs, things that aren't supported by the mothership, which I always call the CFF.
Yep.
That it is important. But no, everybody gets along. There's no time or room for competition. It's just really, you just have to support one another.
I love that. We've had meetings with Piper's Angels.
Mm-hmm.
The Bonnell Foundation actually supported their event and went down there and volunteered. I love that camaraderie.
Right.
That those nonprofits can work together and, like you said, support each other because everyone's filling a different niche, right? Like,
right.
There's not a lot of repetition because there's a lot of issues to be addressed, right?
Right. And CFRI in California, they've supported me. They will put information about the foundation into their newsletter. And they've been around for, I think 50 years. So they have so much stability. And then I called Chris at the Boomer Esiason Foundation, talked to him a couple days ago, just needed some more feedback about his scholarship program. Because again, they've been around longer than me. And there were some things I didn't like about how our scholarship program was going. And I needed some advice. And so he willingly listened to everything I was doing and gave some really good feedback. And then, Roxy F., Emily Schaller, we support one another. She sponsored some of our events. I've sponsored her events. Emily's entourage, they'll promote anything we do and vice versa. CFLF in Florida, I was on their Strollo University that they did. I was featured, and then I always promote them. And like I said, Boomer Esiason, I just don't want to forget anybody, and there are more. But there's so much camaraderie, like you said, and it only helps all of us because we work together.
The CF community is small but mighty,
right?
And we're always so much stronger together. So to see everybody working together and supporting each other is really actually heartwarming. And like I said, in Canada, we don't have as much of that. Now we're a much smaller country, so.
And you have what, a CF population of, is it 4,400?
Yeah, about 4,400, I think, right now. But, I know that one of the foundations, I had somebody message me today and say, I don't know if Maddie knows about this program that she can take part in. And it's a U.S. program, but it's actually supporting Canadians as well, which I think it's pretty amazing that the outreach is that far, right? Your podcast that comes out, your podcast that you actually put into Spanish. Right? Or your web page. I'm sorry, the web.
Yep, the web page.
Into Spanish to help that community.
And we did do a podcast in Spanish, but I'm only 88 days into learning Spanish, so it's still a challenge. I want you to do
some of that.
Oh my gosh, I love Spanish. I am so committed to it. I hope in 5 years I can actually speak it. I feel like, and right now I can read it, but speaking it, I have zero confidence, and it's a slow process, but I love it.
Yep. You'll get there. I have no doubt. Well, if anyone can, Laura, it'll be you because look at what you've done so far. So the Bonnell Foundation, with you at the helm, has certainly touched a lot of lives, and you've really made an impact for the community, both north and south of the border. Like, you're reaching us up here in Canada. Like, you have a following and people that, we traveled down to your event last September, right? And it was amazing.
Amazing.
The fact that you started with this back in 2010 and you're going strong, you've been to Egypt, your voice is being heard globally. That's incredible.
I was just going to say, I didn't think in 2010 that we would be where we are now. And not that I didn't believe it. It's just sometimes you can't envision what you don't realize.
Mm-hmm.
And I didn't realize all the challenges at that time in the low-income countries. We just got a request from Central America for some financial assistance, which we don't do because we're only, doing in the United States right now. But that was really cool to see them reach out. And it actually, I thought, well, I need to talk to them. Maybe I'll do a podcast with them. What's the need there?
Yep.
What are your challenges? Because they were asking for assistance for basics, for enzymes. So there's so much work to do, so much more.
And you're doing it and you're knocking it back. What kind of advice would you have for somebody like me who says, wow, that looks really terrific. Like, she's making a big impact. Is that something that I want to jump into? What would you tell somebody that came to you with that? What would you think would be good advice?
If somebody who wanted to start a foundation?
Start their own foundation.
I mean, I wouldn't hold anyone back. I would say, if that's what you want to do, go for it. On the same wave, I would say one of my former board members did something I thought was so thoughtful and so considerate. Rather than starting his own foundation, he said, you know what? I want to fundraise for your foundation. We don't need to do another foundation. And I really appreciated that because he had a different knowledge, different ideas. So I would also say, once you decide what your vision is and what you want to do and how much work you want to put into it, etc., think about helping another foundation, because all of us, we need motivated and great people to help facilitate all these things. I can't tell you how much I could use someone to take over our largest event, but that's got to be someone who really wants to do it. And that's just as far as facilitating this big event. So I can focus on other things. And I'm not saying I would step away from overseeing, our biggest gala. I obviously would still have a hand in it, but there are things that if people want to help, that's a great way. For example, I have friends who took over the silent and live auction part of getting all the items, which they did that about a year ago. And that's a huge weight off my shoulders. I can't do everything.
Yeah.
So the fact that I've got this group of girlfriends who are working on that, it takes just a huge amount of pressure off of me. I can focus on getting all the pharma videos for the virtual event and getting all the sponsors and the logos and working on all the video that has to be edited and the plan for that evening. And then I'm working with the venue, and that's just one event. And then I have a goal of what needs to be raised, and I know if we're close or we're not. And then I'm also reaching out to businesses because I do think that things are changing in the world of pharma. Smaller companies are being bought out. There's less money for nonprofits. I personally don't see any conflict of interest working with pharmas at all, but I think that's because I'm always transparent and I always stick up for what I think. And if there's any funny business, I would definitely call anybody on that, regardless of anybody giving us money or not. But I think that's really important, that you need to remember you have to keep growing, not only in your ideas for the foundation, but also how you're funded by local businesses who want to put money into your foundation and across the country. And you're probably going to ask me this, but I just remembered it and I wanted to say it before I forget. But I was listening to this wonderful podcast, not mine, even though it is
I was going to say it was.
But I was listening to someone else's. They were talking about your business. And actually, I think he was a singer, and he was talking about how the only way you can stay, he's up there kind of in the Taylor Swift kind of platform as far as visibility goes. But he just talked about you constantly have to reinvent yourself because you want people to keep listening and to keep coming. So there's no time to just say, I'm just going to mail it in. I'm not really going to perform well. And I thought, oh, right. You're so right. It's the same with a foundation, right? People get bored. I know how I could make my event better this year. I know what small things went wrong last year. Just for an example, we didn't have assigned seating. People hated that. They like to know who they're sitting with, and they want to sit with their friends. Nobody is opposed to meeting new people, but I realized, oh my gosh, so this year we have assigned seating, people can buy tables. It was things like that, like, oh my gosh, people can't talk too long. I need to have more control of who's speaking and how long they speak. Because people get antsy. They want to go have a cocktail, or they just want to get up and talk to people. So there were a lot of things, and I love that feedback because you need it. I would never want someone to feel like they couldn't say, this really stunk, this was not a good thing, and not tell me because I want to change it. I always want it to be better. So I just realized, yes, it's so important. You have to reinvent your foundation every year. It has to be better. Your events have to be better. Or you have to, like a mom sent me an email and said, I really love that you give scholarships to young people, but what about parents of kids with CF?
Wow.
And I thought, well, why not?
Yeah.
We could do that. So we're going to do that next year. So I do love people's input, and sometimes it's things I haven't thought about. So it's wonderful to hear from people. People have great ideas.
When you know better, you do better. That's one of my favorite sayings. So getting feedback, that's how you improve. And I thought that the event was fabulous last year. Looking forward to it this year. I'm sure that it'll be, as good or better. So firstly, I guess, are we putting a shout out for anybody that might be interested in helping with your event, your big event, or?
Absolutely.
So maybe if any of our listeners are out there that might want to get their feet wet, I couldn't think of a better mentor than Laura, but I think that's a good place to start. And going back a little bit to your advice to somebody, you'd have to duplicate so much of the work that you've talked about. And there's a lot of people that would be up for that. But there's, like you said, there's a lot of people that could go in and just help make it already standing and started foundation even better to support the patients. You're still doing the same kind of work. So I think that's a great place to start and kind of go in and help and get your feet wet and learn what needs to be done.
Like I said, I wouldn't stifle anybody from starting their own foundation, but
no,
we definitely would love ideas and help. And the other thing somebody can do is, if they don't want to start their own foundation, but maybe they want to start a program, something that we don't have, we would love somebody to say, you know what, I have this idea for a program in your foundation, and let's try it.
Yeah.
So I like people's ideas and welcome that.
No, that's fabulous. You're an inspiration to me. I'm not going to say that I would ever take up the cause, but I admire you greatly for all you do and all you've done. And I know just trying to keep up with you is a challenge because you're always going from early morning to late into the evening. You just go, go, go. But your foundation is making a big change and a big positive difference for a lot in the CF community. And I commend you for that. Incredible.
Well, thanks. But again, it's because of people like you and so many people that have helped the Bonnell Foundation. certainly couldn't do it by myself. And we just have so many great people working on the foundation. I also have to tell you a funny story. This is like, my mom asked me the other day, so do you just work on your one event gala every year, all year long? I wish, right? If that was the only thing.
Yeah.
And I laughed and I said, well, actually, Mom, today the foundation came to a grinding halt because of an experience I had at our bank. We were adding another signer because we got another bookkeeper. So we were adding her, and the bank was like, oh, the state of Michigan says you're Bonnell Foundation, not the Bonnell Foundation. And I was like, okay, it's not an issue because that's the way the state and the feds have us down, and it's not a big deal. I get a call the next day that says they're freezing the foundation's assets.
Oh my God.
Because the names don't match. Instead of saying, you've been a loyal customer of ours for 13 years, let me look into this for you. So I had to stop everything, call the state of Michigan and talk to them. And actually, the guy laughed. He said, well, I can't believe your bank's doing that because the is not a word that is part of a foundation name. It's not considered. It would be if I change my foundation name to the Beth Vanstone Foundation, that's a name change. But the is not considered part of it. So they actually changed it right away just to appease the bank.
Wow.
But that took me the entire day. So that kind of crazy stuff happens on and off. But yeah, there's a lot involved. And I've learned just so much.
I know it's certainly a lot more than planning for the one event. So we're 13 years later. Is it any easier now than it was when you started? What would you think?
I think now I know so much more that's made it easier in a way. But I think the harder challenge is what I was talking about a little bit a minute ago, is that you have to keep reinventing. You have to keep doing these new things and stay up with the times. I mean, when the pandemic hit, I'm so proud of how we pivoted for that. I mean, so many people did, but we had to do our first virtual event, all virtual event, in a really short time, like so many people did. It was one of our best events. We had so many people on the virtual event. It was so successful. We raised so much money. People had no place to go and lots of money to spend. That was, to our benefit. But it's just things like that. You always have to pivot. So easier in some ways, in many ways, and then harder in others.
Well, you're doing an amazing job despite any challenges that you face. So I think we've learned a lot today from you, Laura, on the beginning and the middle and the continuation of the Bonnell Foundation.
Yeah, our goals are big. We want to help more people than we are now, and we want to keep growing and have a lot more advocacy to do. So there is a lot to be done. And it's just really important also to thank everybody who continues to and has worked, with the Bonnell Foundation, because we couldn't do it without any of the people who've helped and who continue to. And I'm just going to throw it out there. It's like on this vision board, the Powerball is like 900 million billion. I don't even know. As our Powerball, our lottery here keeps growing. If anyone wins an incredible amount of money and has $1 million to spare, we will take it here at the Bonnell Foundation.
And we know that it'll be going to help a lot of people. So I can't think of a better place to spot down $1 million than the Bonnell Foundation and see you guys work your magic with it.
Right? That would be incredible. What a dream.
Mm-hmm.
Well, thanks, Beth. Hopefully people learned a little bit more, and any more questions, just shoot us an email. I'd love to share. Any thing that people are wondering about.
Well, terrific. We learned a lot. Thank you so much, Laura.
If you're looking for a good party, an event where you can mix and mingle with kind people, join the Bonnell Foundation on Saturday, September 9th for the Night of Hope Diamonds in the Sky event. We're going to have fun and raise a lot of money for our programs. See the ticket link in show notes or on our website. We'll see you there. The original music in this podcast is performed by Kevin Allen.
It's not complicated.
Who happens to have cystic fibrosis.
We all got our worries and fears. I know it's got you frustrated, but loving you is so alright.
This has been the Living with Cystic Fibrosis podcast. For more information and to learn more about the Bonnell Foundation, visit our website at thebonnellfoundation.org. That's the BONNELL Foundation.org. This podcast was sponsored by Viatris, Genentech, and Vertex. It was produced by Jag and Detroit Podcasts. Follow our show on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you're listening right now.